This is the Outliers Edge podcast, where we champion the leaders who are shaping the next era of humanity by taking them to the edge of their comfort zone so that they can lead us to the edge of what's next. I'm your host, Niiamah Ashong. Let's do this. Heyo, Outliers. How are you? Niiamah Ashong here. And it's great to be seen and it's great to be heard. And I say it's great to be heard because literally I counted down to start the recording on this and I accidentally muted myself rather than hitting record. So welcome. We're going to have some fun today. And I love this element of allowing your voice to be heard, allowing your voice to be seen. I don't let things just slide by. Right now, the question in my mind is, where in my world am I silencing myself? Where in my world am I saying that I want to step into something and instead I'm holding back and I'm muting myself before I even get the words out there? That's part of why I share this with you all here. You didn't need to know that. But at the same time, if you didn't, what would we have lost? And what would I have lost in terms of like the actual ability to say what is true and what is real for me? So welcome to this conversation. If you don't know me, my name is Niiamah Ashong. I am the pioneer of the World Joy Movement and founder of the Outliers Edge, where we champion the leaders who are shaping the future of our world. It's what we do. And when we do this here, we work with outliers who have had results that are different than other people, who've had experiences and pathways that are different than others. And we spend our time focused on seeing like, where else can we go? How can we leverage this in different ways? And what is it like to play on your edge now, given that you've already created and had a track record of success in different ways? We are odd defiers. Odd defiers? We're defy odders? I don't know what it is, but we defy the odds. And at a certain place, at a certain point in time, there comes a thing where there's no one else out there who's done what it is that you've done, or who has a vision like it is that you have. And we find ourselves in conversation with some of these people out there to share their story, not because their way is your way. That's not what we're going for. But what we do want to see is to see both how much room you have in order to create your world as it works for you, as well as how people are dealing in real time with the edges that they're currently facing. I got a chance today to spend some time with an amazing outlier. Her name is Carina Ghionzoli. And Carina, I'm glad to be in conversation with you in this moment here. It's good to see you.
Hello, Niiamah. Yes, I'm glad to be here too. Thank you so much for inviting me. And before we start, I'd just like to say something about you muting yourself. That is quite interesting. It just like there's no coincidences, right? And it just goes in so nicely with what we possibly would be talking about today.
I like that. I like this little teaser right here, y'all. So let's do this here. Carina, I'd like to start off our conversations with just grounding in with the person that's here, all right? And so I'm going to ground in with you and let you know a bit about who you are to me in this moment, right?
Thank you.
Carina and I, yeah, absolutely. I realized I was about to go off and talk to like the ether. I realized no, I actually just need to talk to you. Just give me a second, just kind of like ground in on this, and then I'll share who you are. So Carina, you're someone who we're just getting to know. And yet I found you through your podcast, the Break Fear, Find Freedom podcast. And I remember listening to the podcast and being able to like sit back immediately and be like, oh, she got this. Okay, I'm in good hands. We had the opportunity to talk together on your podcast, Outliers. If you haven't yet, go check out that conversation. It's going to be, Carina, you are phenomenal in both podcasting, but also just conversation. And one of the things that I might have shared with you, but I want to make sure that you know, it's like you gave me a lot of freedom coming into that conversation, because I got a message that said, this is a completely unscripted conversation. And yes. I didn't realize it in that moment, but that's exactly what my heart wanted. I actually went to my team afterwards and said, hey, going forward, if it's not unscripted, I don't want to be a part of it. like, this is what I want. And I didn't know that this is what I wanted. And not only did I not know it is what I wanted, I didn't know that I could ask for it before you put it into my space there.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I want to say that, like, about you here. I get excited to continue to get to know you. You also have been a truth teller. You stay true to yourself as you go through, and you're not afraid to go exactly where we need to go in a conversation here. So I'm honored and excited to be in conversation with you and to continue to grow our relationship. And I'm happy that Outliers are getting a chance to get to know you.
Thank you, Niiamah. Yes, we had a beautiful conversation, and it is out. It's actually coming out today. I'm not sure when this podcast is, when it's been published today. And it was a beautiful conversation. So whoever's watching, or the audience, you have to go and watch it. You'll understand. It was. I love the synchronicities and the connection. It was almost like, wow, we're just both on the same page, and we just danced within that conversation. So I'm looking forward to this follow-up now.
I love that as well, like, to just be able to dance in the conversation, I'm happy to take the lead this time, and we'll see what genre of music we'll be playing to dance into this time.
That is so cool.
So, Carina, I shared a bit about who you are to me in this current moment, but I'd love for people to just get the chance to get to know you as you think of yourself. So would you mind sharing with us a bit about you personally and professionally?
Well, my mantra, so to speak, is break fear, find freedom. It's been like, I think throughout life, I've been an outlier. I've been a loner because I've never connected with anyone. Everyone thought I was weird. So I'd be the person that would be in the kitchen at parties, right? And I realized that there was so many fears and so much self-hatred that it was difficult, it was keeping me stuck. So, it's not only me, I've seen it in so many other people. It's like mirrors all over the place. So then that's why it came about, this break fear. If we can break that fear, and we can find freedom, whatever it is. And of course, fears, you can't break fears, right? They morph, they mute, they transform, they still hide under the bed sometimes, but it doesn't matter. So that's the essence of what I am at the moment. But you know what, there's other pieces. Like I've just published my book, The Clank of Chains, and that was about, I got arrested I was in detention for 8.5 months for a visa overstay. So it was only immigration. I didn't do anything bad, right? Well, and that's what the book's about, because there was growth as well there. And you realize that it was a learning experience, but not only that, it was an experience of people and of knowing that, sometimes we're so self-absorbed and we hate ourselves, or whatever it is. We don't realize that when we turn around and help someone else, it helps us, and we just grow and learn. So that's where I'm at, with probably one of the most important things to me is about the self-love now. It's all an internal job. So if you don't love yourself, Niiamah, who are you going to love? And we can love everybody because that's what we do. But it's not an unconditional love. It's always a conditional love. And we don't realize that until we start doing the work. So on that note, what's
flowing through me?
What's flowing through you?
Yeah, that's like, it's so funny because I have like such specific ways of saying things. I'm like, this is what's pouring out of me right now. It's like, okay. One of the things that really caught me, there was a few words in there, and words are important to me. We talked about self-hatred, and I actually recognized that, like, I'll talk to a lot of people about self-love, I'll talk to them about worthiness. I'll talk about confidence. I'll talk to them about value. But as you said, I'm like, I don't think I've actually had someone who just called in and owned, like, hey, I viewed myself in a place of self-hatred. And it's not a conversation I tend to have, even though there's probably elements of it that have shown up in every one of those conversations, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, like just because I see you just like owning it in a different way, owning that word here. I would love to like just explore a little bit with that with you here, and then get into the self-love part of it all. Because I think we get to just like see a bit of the journey, and then also just see like how does this continue to play out for both you and me here. Because that's what I like to look at. I'm like, we're gonna have a conversation. Other people can gain from it, but the more that we are being served in here, the better off for anyone else
Yes.
who can't
Yes.
express themselves the way that we are because they're not in this conversation right now.
Yes.
All
Yes.
right.
Yes.
Yeah. So would you mind sharing just like I'm just deeply curious about like self-hatred and like just your experience with it here. It's newer for me in the place of like in terms of language. I want to kind of leave the pathway towards it open. And let's stay with like the part that feels really powerful or really meaningful for you to bring into this conversation.
Thank you, Niiamah. Well, I know self-hatred it's very harsh. That hate is like harsh. And possibly that's the only thing, because it's that thing of you're never good enough. I was never good enough. No matter how well I did or how much I did, I was never good enough. It was never good enough. I always say, like, you're so stupid. Why did you do this? Or why did you say that? Or what are you thinking? Or why didn't you do this? So what it was the metaphorical whip. You know that metaphorical whip? There's a scene in the Da Vinci Code. I don't know if you've seen the Da Vinci Code, and where the main character, I can't remember his name, but I just see this picture where he flagellates himself because of whatever he does. And of course, it wasn't self-flagellation, right? On a physical sense, but it was in a metaphorical sense. Constantly, like, look what you look like. Your hair, look at your hair, look at your face, look at your hair, look. I mean, this constant self-degradation all the time. And who knows where it came from? You can go to past and and at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. The thing is that you are in that space at that time. And it affects your life, it affects your confidence, it affects the way you present yourself to the world. And of course, because we're all mirrors, right? You just get the same, like staring right back at you, saying like, of course you're ugly. Of course you're not good enough. Of course you're not enough. Of course you don't deserve this, or you don't deserve that, or you don't deserve a good life, or you don't deserve a good relationship, or you don't deserve a beautiful man, or whatever it is. We can put it into any context we want to. And as a result of that, I was always a loner. So most of the time, I have a very overactive imagination. I'm a writer, okay? And the stories in your head. And sometimes, and a lot of the times, most of the times, the stories aren't true. But of course, if you don't go out and speak to people or interact with people, you don't know the truth. You cannot see the truth because it's in your head, right? So what happens is the more you isolate, the more you stand in a corner, the more you shake in that corner out of fear, because now you're becoming afraid of everything. The more you hate yourself because there's no energy, you procrastinate, you haven't got the energy or the courage or the confidence to do anything. The more you hate yourself, and it's just a vicious, horrible, vicious, ugly cycle. So I hope that vision was really.
Well, I appreciate you. Like, I'm like, oh, you really get it, right? And you know it, but I appreciate you and allowing it to be visceral with us. We're going to go in a couple of different directions here, and you'll be surprised sometimes, I think, and where I choose to go, because it's just what interests me in the conversation. You started with this whole thing. There was one part in there where you started saying that you're an author, it felt like, and then you changed it to you're a writer. And I've had a number of different conversations with different writers and authors where that actually is an important distinction. So as I'm trying to get to know you here, tell me like what happened there. What is the difference for you? Why do you choose one versus the other in this case?
That's interesting, because I suppose I'm a writer. I write a lot, but I publish little. I don't publish everything I write. Because it's taken me only to this point, because of all the work that I've had to do to clear all the self-hatred and to build myself up and to build the self-love and the belief and the confidence. It's only recently that I've actually come out and said, hey, this is me and this is who I stand for and this is who I am. So it's been difficult to come out and to actually expose myself, for the want of a better word, right? Because that sounds really strange.
It doesn't sound strange to me. I feel when I think about exposure in this case, it's like I've been revealed, I've been uncovered, I've been, it's like, yeah, there's that component of like vulnerability.
Yes.
That's in it. It's not just being seen, but it's like a vulnerability in being seen. Like when you say exposed, what does that mean for you?
Yes, that's exactly what it is. It's not being afraid anymore. It's not being afraid anymore of standing in front and being on a Zoom call, for example, or on being on video. I hated video. It was so because of what I felt about myself, right? And that's really what it is. It's having the courage to say, this is who I am. Well, you know what? If you like it, it's like that. If you don't like it, it's tough. I mean, I know that sounds harsh, but it's something that had to be said for myself. And also, I mean, going back to the book, it took me forever to publish the book because I was so afraid. I was so afraid of kickback. I was so afraid of exposing myself. I was so embarrassed about what had happened. Yet it was a calling. I had to write the book. So there was this constant conflict as well. And once I published it, then it's like, oh, okay, it's fine. It was like big deal. I published it. Oh, well, let's move on. But it almost gave me that permission to show myself and say, okay, this is what I've done. This is what I've got. And this is how I can help you, because I know that I can help you. I've seen it. Or I can just take your hand or support you or just speak to you or listen to you. I hope I answered the question.
Yeah, you always do. And if you don't worry, I'll ask it again. I just feel like that's great, but you didn't answer the question. But like we're really good. We're just, like I think what works for us is we can always flow with each other. What I realized here is like there's no right or no wrong. It's just us, and whatever comes out of that, it just is. You talked when you were talking, it took me back to the muting of the mic, and that component of like for me, like I am a talker, so when I mute myself, I like that is my version of like not publishing. That's my version of like I'm not doing it. And I hear that like you have a book out right now, but it isn't something that like came easy to you. Writing it probably came fine, but like the actual component of like, great, the book is done. Well, tell me, like, because I'm making up things in my head, and I'm talking to you right now. I'd rather know the truth. Yeah, like, what were like the three most like difficult parts about actually writing the book, and then we'll get to the publishing part separately.
I think the writing the book was actually going back and experiencing, because as I said, I was in detention for 8.5 months, and that's what the book is about. But just going back and experiencing it and having to go back. I didn't want to go back, really, even though I came out a different person, I didn't want to go back. But like I said, it was almost a need. It was a calling. It was a calling while I was in detention. It was I got this, and you know what, now I'm sounding like I'm really, but it was almost like
stay with me, because just so you know, like I believe strongly in callings. I like the people here who listen to this here, they're like I can't help but do what it is. It's not like it's not, some things are not a choice. Sometimes I walk away from it, I could get banged in the head and I have to go down this path. Yes. Trust me, a lot of us outliers would have chosen an easier way of living if that was actually available for us, but we are being called towards something. So like we get you when you say it. Please tell us more.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Thank you. I should have get to that. But so one day when because you in detention, it's like a big room full of about 160 women. It's not so big. And you're in cells with 10 10, 10 people in bunks. And I was sitting on top of the bunk and I was journaling. I journaled a lot, obviously. And as I was journaling, it came to me and it was like, clear, you know what? You have to write this book. I'm going like, oh, really? You have to write this book and it has to be called The Clank of Chains. Now, of course, I tried afterwards to change the name because the Clank of Chains, if someone says the Clank of Chains, it means nothing, right? So I spoke to my mentor and whatever, and he said to me, well, you know what, you should have a name that people resonate with, that can understand what it's about. And I couldn't change it. I just couldn't change it. So that's the name of the book, The Clank of Chains. But I had to write the book. And the most difficult part was, like I said, I had to go back and experience it. And you know what, there were bad times and there were good times. And I survived it, and that was fine. But the most difficult part was actually publishing. So I got nudged by my co-host on my podcast, which next time you'll meet. And he kept nudging me and I started getting embarrassed because he kept saying, how's your book coming along? And I'd say, it's coming. He says, and then the week after, because we do a podcast every week, and he'd say, okay, so how's your book coming along? It's coming. Eventually I thought, I'm so embarrassed. I said, okay. So eventually I took the plunge, and there were two buttons, right? One publish and one delete. And I was so tempted at that moment to just delete it. But I didn't. I pressed publish instead, which was, like I said, freedom. It really was freedom on so many levels.
So I'm glad you're calling this out here, because like as you're describing this here, I'm talking to other people who have gone through the writer authors, like I hear this experience that you're having, and it actually it seems very familiar to me. I haven't written a book yet. I feel that I feel like my journaling happens in real time. I'm like, watch this conversation. I have hundreds of hours of material online, but I haven't gone through the process of actually going through and creating and bringing something and to life in that way. And to describe that moment, it's like submit, publish, or delete. It's like you have one more out there. Otherwise, it's gone. It's out. It's out of your hands forever. It's like the moment that it's out there, it's out there. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm glad you the things that come to me as you say this are a couple of different things. One, the clank of chains. To me, it's a pretty badass name, and it is. There's another part of it that, going past the superficial of it all, the component of, I hear it has to be this, that's just what it was. This was delivered to me to create, and this is it. Yes, there may be other things that are easier identifiable or so on and so forth, but that's not this book, not this title. Maybe I'll write another book at another time with all the other stuff, but for this book, that's it. Am I am I in alignment with the experience of it?
Yes.
Nice. So I really just the first thing that comes is just the, not everyone honors the intuitive hits that they get, the downloads that they get. So people talk about universe, talk about God, they'll talk about whatever it is, their thing, that providence, but not everyone honors it. And what I hear from you is it's like you didn't step away from it. As difficult as the call-in might have been, as confronted as the call-in might have been, you still walked into that.
Yes, I had to, because I wasn't alone. I mean, I was totally alone. Okay, physically, I was totally alone in detention. I had no outside connection except for one person, and he disappeared, right? I had no contact. I had no outside connection. I had no money. I had no contacts. I had no possibility to get a lawyer. I couldn't get a pro bono lawyer. So I was alone, yet I wasn't. I wasn't alone. I had angels, and I had the spirituality within me, and that's what got me through it almost, and helped me find the good. So I found all the blessings within it, and there were a lot, because I grew a lot from it. And of course, that's in the book. In the book is more. It's not about my journey so much as about, hey, you can break the chains of your mind, because at the end of the day, that's all it was. Initially I was really afraid, and I curled up in a ball in this, terrified. And then one day I said to myself, you know what, they can keep me here as a prisoner. They can, because that's what they're doing, but they're not going to imprison my mind. And that's what the book is about. It's about how many people are walking around free in inverted commas, yet they're imprisoned. And that's what the book's really about. It's about breaking those chains of your fear and those chains of your prison within yourself, and freeing yourself out of wherever you are, and finding your freedom and having the courage to do whatever you need to do in your life. So that's really, so it's not really such a, superficially it's about me going here and going there, and but it's much deeper than that. It goes much deeper than that.
I like how you called out like the quote unquote free people outside there that are actually still chained in, you know. And that's one of the things that's why I think, like, when you said self-hatred and you were talking about your experience, I was like, oh, this person's like in the freedom of it, you know, like you can talk about it without it actually like taking over you. And there's also part of this, like, let me just say it, you know, like this is just the experience. Like, let me be in the freedom of, like, we're okay. Like I'm not going to get chained in my mind around what this is. Like, my mind is not going to get chained down.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I also want to just really acknowledge you and just kind of call out the component of having like your co-host, basically I'll say like a partner in crime to some extent, right? Like in the sense here of like, essentially just sharing like, hey, this is being written, this is happening. And then having someone who saw you and knew that like your voice, your message needed to get out into the world. And in their own gentle way, just like, or maybe not so gentle, let's say present way, their own present way came in there. And it speaks a bit to like the presence of having people that have your back. Because you said in this conversation, you said, like, I was a loner, you know, I am a loner, you know. You said, like, when I was in there, I was alone, you know. And like, I would love to speak a little bit. Loneliness, my number one fear is being alone. Just you know, like, it's what drives me in so many different things. It's why I'm like constantly in conversation or looking for, like, it's just is, you know. It's like, and so there's a lot in there. It takes me from, I look from being alone to finding belonging constantly. That's what I do. And sometimes I have a very like a powerful way of doing it. Other times I have a disempowering way, and I try and fit in, or sometimes even fit out. So I'm curious about, like, there's something there around the alone part. There's something there around like being alone. And I just like, I want to explore a little bit to see like what's meaningful, what's powerful for you around that. What comes to mind when I bring up some of these things around it?
Okay, so remember, I'm a loner, right? I don't mind my own company. I've come to love myself enough to be okay with who I am, and I'm okay to be alone. But you can be alone sometimes in a crowded room, and that's how I felt there. It was, I was an outlier. I was an outlier there because most of the time that they were speaking Spanish, and it was funny. I just started learning Spanish. I mean, I'm in San Diego. I thought, hey, I need to learn Spanish, right? Makes sense. But I didn't understand anything, and I realized that it's so different. Like, Mexicans different to Costa Rica is different. I mean, obviously they're all different areas. So I was not only alone and afraid, I was alone in my head because I didn't understand. I didn't understand the ways, and of course that just made me withdraw even more. So it was that aloneness inside this crowded room, and it was really crowded and really, really loud. And that was one of the things that really affected me the most, was the noise. So, you know, like some people, in order to stay, because they don't want to be alone, they have music, right? You play music, you play loud music so that you can have that noise around you. And for me, I just wanted it to stop. So it was this constant conflict of being alone, yet not wanting to be alone. And of course, I didn't want to be there, and being stuck in this, like your life is planned for you. Like you have to go and do this and do that at that time. And eventually you become like this robot and you just fall into it and you just do everything. And then you learn that you don't have to be alone. You don't have to be alone. You don't have to fit in, but you don't have to be alone, because somehow you just find people that resonate with you. And even though you find people that you would never ever in outside detention, you'd never even connect at all. You'd never even think of connecting with these people. You connect with them, and you connect on almost on a soul level, because you have the same story, and you have to have each other's back. And then the loneliness dissipates. But you don't have to stay. You don't have to stick. You don't have to compromise yourself. You don't have to do something to be part of the group. You just become part of the group. Does that even make sense?
It makes sense to you? Does it make sense to you, Carina?
Well, you know, I'm explaining it in my head, but I'm wondering if it makes sense to your audience, or yes.
Yeah, I'm gonna free you of that one. Don't worry. We will be pulling out what we need to pull out from that there. My general thing is, like, I understood you, right? Did it make sense to me?
Yes.
Yes.
Now I'm going to ask you, what is your experience of loneliness? And we did discuss this on the podcast, but we'll go deeper.
Yeah. No, like this, loneliness is different than aloneness. I'm someone who, like, I'm a massive extrovert, so I tend to, I am, the way I describe it is like, I mean, in college is a great example. Like 1 in 13 people on that campus knew me. You know, like I was gonna graduate, and in senior week, someone came to me and said, "You're Nemo, right?" That's the name I was going by at the time. Like, "You're Nemo, right?" I'm like, "Yep, I am." Like, oh, thank goodness! I thought I was going to graduate without having met you. You know, I was like, you know, so I was someone who never was alone, right? Physically, like I was friends with everyone. I was friends with everyone, and or let's say that's friendly with everyone. Like, and I also like create this space of me, like, not of me just like being incredibly PC, right? Like politically correct. There was not, like, I wouldn't touch any topic, you know. And it's really speaks to a lot. Like, I think about my journey now, and like where the places we go, I'm like, okay, we've gone places. But like what I ended up getting was a place where I was well known, but I was not known well. And like when when something would happen, like I didn't have anyone that I really felt like I can go to. I actually had 5 friends. Like, I knew hundreds, if not thousands, of people on that campus. But I had 5 like real deep friends that like, and it was like the 5 of us would be together, you know. 2 of them really, you know, then the 3 of us would always walk around. So like, I think for me, the loneliness, there are times where I've been alone. Like, I've had to clean out a storage closet at work, and it was literally the worst hour of my entire work experience ever on this planet. Like, of all the years I've done, I was like, that was the worst still to this day. And I was just cleaning up a closet, like, but it was horrendous for me. But I think the experience for me is this deep desire to not be alone, and then at the same time creating my own forms of loneliness along the way. I'm almost like the source of my loneliness, and it's painfully obvious at times. I'll end it with this one right now in the business at the time of this recording. We've recently made a shift to like just be in service with people, because I had allowed my systems thinking and my operational mindset and my process mindset to like create a number of different automations that would take people through constant flows and so forth. And while I had good intentions with it, and like there's a lot of heart that was coming into it, there wasn't a lot of me, you know.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. And in such, like I can have hundreds of people go through it, but we weren't getting we weren't getting people saying yes to things, you know. And it was one of those things where I realized, like, oh, I'm creating this loneliness again. In my attempt to get hundreds of people in, I'm not getting 5, you know, or whatever the number was, you know. And so right now we're in a place of bridging that loneliness gap here by through the sense of service. I would say like service is the bridge, co-creation is the bridge as well, like on the other side, and it's bridging this thing of like loneliness to belonging, because I'm finding my outliers and we're talking about the outlying things and we're building with one another and so on and so forth. So that's that really feels like my experience of loneliness, at least now. It's evolved over time. And like the loneliness that I have now is more like, am I going to say this? Like who's going to listen? Like, or no, the real loneliness I have is like that. I actually have to apologize because it's not true. As I said, I was like, that's not you anymore. You're like, I don't care who listens. Like my thing is, my loneliness is, does anyone else understand that like this whole world around us was completely made up? The humans over millennia kept making things up. And like it's just an accumulation of things that people made up. There is no real rule to this world, you know, other than the rules that we choose to accept. So, and I look at it even like the rules of business, you know, I'm like, there's no real rules there other than those that we choose to accept. So you can create a new rule.
Yes,
you know?
yes.
Yeah. So that to me, I think is the space now where I'm looking for people. And that's where I experience the most loneliness. I'm like, hey, y'all, you get this is all made up, right? So what do you want to make up with it? Like, this is all just a game that people silently decided that we're going to play. All right. That's my complete answer for this moment right now.
Oh, wow. I love that, because it's always for me, you know, that, and you experience it like on a daily basis. You have the miracles and you think, whoa, that's so cool. And you know, and then you go back and you think, whoa, but that's how I created it. And it's really exciting. And yes. So I just thought I'd put that in.
I'm glad you did. I gave me a chance to play some things out. We're at the top of our hour, and like I'd love to like bring us into completing this particular conversation. Yes. I'm enjoying it. I'm like, I would like to keep going. I look down, I was like, oh man. Yeah, that's really what I feel. I want to call out something that was like ringing loudly in my head when you talk about the language component of it. And I just like, I imagine us as outliers going into like having success in various areas of our lives, knowing more or less like how things worked in that environment, and then choosing to do something different. Maybe we went to a new company, maybe we got promoted in our own company, but now we're like in like senior leadership. Maybe we started our own business, or we like took our family to a thing, or we decided to go on a self-development journey that like few other people around us are actually talking about. And like it just got me that level of like the translating like language, where it's like all of a sudden you go into a place and you're like, I don't know what you're talking about, you know. Yes. Or how crowded it can be, and everyone else like all knows the same guru, or is all saying this is exactly what and they're really loud. Have you made a podcast yet? Have you made your book yet? Have you gone on social media? Have you done this yet? And it's like, this is how it's supposed to be. And so like when you were describing that, I was just I got that sensation of what it's like. And that's why I like being an outlier, to be honest, because it's quieter up here. And I love people, right? But I'm like, man, the average is way too crowded. There's a lot of people there all yelling at you in the same thing, you know, and like, but they haven't had the experience. They've only had the same experience bouncing it around each other. So yes. This really took me to I had a couple different images in my mind when you were describing that. Any thoughts on that? And then we'll wrap up with our last 2 questions for today.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. Another thing just about language, I'll just add quickly, and then we can, it's amazing how eventually language doesn't matter anyway. I mean, I started learning Spanish and I'm learning it now. So I'm becoming pretty proficient with it now out of principle, right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, we all speak the same language. And you can communicate and you can learn and you can talk to each other without actually speaking the language. Yeah, it's just my thoughts on that.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you brought it in. So we'll do this here. We will have we've had 2 conversations now. I feel like we're just going to keep having conversations and finding ways to collaborate. And, maybe the next thing we do will be a way to actually get people to come experience and finding freedom with us, I like to, like I said, you're in my world now. So, we'll keep growing with one another. For those people that want to go and see your world, continue the conversation, go down the path with you here. What's the best way for them to do that?
Well, probably the podcast for now, Break Fear, Find Freedom, on YouTube. So it's Break Fear, Find Freedom. And I have a newsletter called The Quest to Break Fear, Find Freedom. It's recent. I've just started about a month ago, but it's pretty cool. So if you want to join me there, I'll give you all the links and things. I'll send them all to you, Niiamah.
All right, that sounds good. You should say, let us know what your website is, because we don't do too much with show notes here. So just let us know, so that if we're listening, we can choose to go for it. What is the?
Well, at the moment, I'm rearranging and rechanging, so I don't really have a website per se at the moment. Right at this moment, well, maybe by the time we've published, I'll have it done.
All right, perfect. So y'all look at this, check the description, look out for that there. We'll have the links and everything there. Where can they go find your book?
The Clank of Chains is in iBooks. I can't get it on Amazon just yet.
Yeah.
So you can find it iBooks.
All right. Fantastic. And then the last thing, Carina, as we end this conversation, is I'd like to give each of my guests a gift, and the gift is the gift of themselves. I call it the time capsule. As we end this conversation, right now, you're in this space with all the wisdom that you've had up until this moment, and you're going to continue walking on your edge out in the world. And sometime a future Carina might be out on her edge, or might be feeling alone, or might be feeling something, and she needs to hear some of the wisdom that you have in this moment. What's the message that you want to leave for yourself at this time?
At this moment, believe in yourself. Have the faith and the courage to just take that leap of faith, because somehow your wings you'll find your wings, and you'll be protected and carried. Just have that faith in yourself and that belief. You won't believe how many doors will open.
There it is. Carina, I am absolutely thrilled that we got to have this conversation. I'm looking forward to our next one. Just know that I feel honored by your presence. I'm glad to know more of your story, and I'm looking forward to where our relationship goes from here. Thanks so much for being in conversation with me.
Thank you, Niiamah. Thank you. This was beautiful, and thank you for having me on your show. Well, it's an honor and a pleasure. Thank you.
We're just getting started. Take 10 seconds to think about your greatest insight from today's conversation. And if you're ready to go and bring this to a deeper, more applicable level for you, come and join us in an upcoming masterclass. Go to outliersedge.com/masterclass to be coached live and to bring your aspirations, your goals, and your challenges and have them handled in real time. This is high flame, high impact, high transformation. Go to outliersedge.com/masterclass and come experience your next level of leadership.